Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here with you this Saturday morning of 2020. My name is Ed Samuel. I'm a career coach with a firm called Sam Nova. We're based in Kennett Square, PA, and serve clients in the greater Philadelphia area and across the U.S. You know, in the spirit of the new traditions, one of them for the new year that I had for a resolution is to introduce a new segment to our program called Career Spotlight. I'll be interviewing people from all walks who have landed in a career that finally seems to resonate in all ways with them. It's not only the end destination, but about the journey, the twists and turns and stumbles that people find themselves in, but also the perseverance that it takes, the risk-taking, about trying to find that balance in life, as well as the compensation and so much more. You know, so as we kick off this series this morning, I'm introducing our very first guest to our Career Spotlight program. Her name is Julie Kovaleski, who hails from Limerick, PA, about an hour west of Philly. You know, I chose Julie for not only her twists and turns in her career, but also she'll be explaining later in the interview some income opportunities that she has for those looking for part-time and full-time work. So she brings a mix of things to the table this morning. So a little bit about Julie. Julie's a market manager and a publisher of two private local magazines. One is in Limerick, PA, and the other is in Upper Providence, PA. She's an independent contractor for a company called Best Version Media, which is based in Wisconsin. And Julie published her first magazine in July 2017, and that's the one in Upper Providence Township, and that covers Collegeville, Phoenixville, and Oaks, PA. She was soon promoted, appointed to market manager for Best Version Media in July 2018 to lead other publishers launching magazines similar to the ones that she's publishing in the townships in areas across PA. You know, in February 2019, Julie launched her second magazine. I guess one wasn't enough, called Limerick Living. And that magazine serves Limerick, of course, and Linfield and parts of Pottstown. So, Julie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me.
You know, so instead of just diving right back into, what you're doing today in publication, let's kind of start from the beginning. Where did you start out? I understand teaching was on the agenda. So tell me a little bit about what triggered you to go into teaching initially.
Sure. So I always enjoyed kids, babysat from when I was little, and I had a passion for wanting to educate, especially young people, fresh minds, clean slate. And I wanted to provide them an environment that was safe, that they could make mistakes, that I could help them, and the progression that you could see from when a child enters your classroom till the end of the year when they leave. So I would say it started way back then when I was when I headed off to college, really.
Wow. Now how long were you a teacher then?
So right out of college, I got a job and I taught from, let me think back, 1993 is when I graduated. So I taught until I had my first son in 1999. So I taught for 5 to 7 years, whatever that number is in there. And then I became a stay-at-home mom for 14 years. After that, dabbled back into teaching, and we can take it from there if you'd like.
Well, and by the way, where did you go to school, and
yes.
And what places did you teach at?
Sure. So I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, about 2 hours up the turnpike, north. Coal time.
A lot of time in Scranton growing up.
Yes. And I graduated from Marywood University. I got my master's degree from East Stroudsburg in reading. But right out of college, the first thing that I did was I moved to inner city Philadelphia, and I was part of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, where I lived and taught in West Philly.
So you went from Scranton into inner city Philadelphia. Wow.
Yes, it was eye-opening. I was taught more than they taught me more than I taught them. Let's just leave it at that.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And so how long were you in?
So I was in West Philadelphia for a year, and then that led me to Chester, Pennsylvania, From there, I decided to move back to the Scranton area, and I taught in the Pocono Mountain School District. All during that time, I taught only elementary school, mostly third grade, a little bit fourth and fifth. And after my journey from the Pocono Mountain School District, my husband and I, we got married, and our lives took us out to northern Kentucky, where we lived for a little over a year, and I taught until my first son was born, and then that's when I became a stay-at-home mom.
Wow. So you went from the country to the city.
Yes.
To a little less city in Chester, but it's still a city.
Yes.
Back to the country, and then to Kentucky.
And then to Kentucky.
And then that was really country. Well, that's great. Now, so you were this teacher for a period of time.
Yep.
Then you had your children for 12 years. Now, what was the kind of that pivotal moment where you said, you know what? I could go back to teaching if I decided to go back to work, but what happened where you said, I don't think so?
Yeah, so good question. We all have a journey, right? So when all my kids were school age and in school full time, I take that back. My youngest was in kindergarten. My kids all went to a private preschool where they also had a kindergarten, pre-kindergarten program, and the women there knew I was a teacher. So it kind of was my segue to get back into the teaching world, which I thought that's where my journey was going to take me because that's what all I knew. And I did that for 2 years, and I thought, okay, this is a great launching pad. I'm going to go back into the school system. I started back in. I did day-to-day subbing in the public schools in Springford and Perkiomen Valley School District. I did some maternity leaves.
So you moved back from Kentucky?
Yes, okay. That's right. I left that part out. So we moved from Kentucky to Collegeville in 2000, I guess it was. 2001, maybe. It'll be almost 18 years ago. And that's where I've been raising my family. So I did these maternity leaves, and I would come home and I would say to my husband, I feel like education has really changed in 20 years. And I think I want to explore other options. And he's like, go for it. You love to talk to people. You're really good at educating. You could use those skills in basically whatever kind of capacity you choose to the path of.
So you got to a point where is there something else other than teaching?
I did.
What do you think triggered that thought? Because a lot of people get there and then they stop and they go right back to what they've been doing.
So there was a lot of soul searching.
Okay.
I 4 kids later, and a husband that travels. I knew one and no family around. Our closest family was in Scranton.
Okay.
I knew a huge factor for me in my life was going to be flexibility. And while teachers have their summers off, and it's a great profession, there's still the arrive at this time, come home at this time. And I had kids in different schools and different bus times, et cetera. So I just knew, along with the fact that I thought education had changed, that was not going to work. So a couple light bulbs went off in my head, and my husband, and he had said this to me for years, you should go into something involved in sales, something involved in sales and marketing. You're really good at talking to people. You have no problem starting this group, starting that group, going out and talking to neighbors, people you don't know. And I was like, you know what? He's right. I could do this.
So then I understand in this venture now.
Yes.
And your values changing, shifting,
yes.
Right, in terms of having flexibility. Health, you landed in healthcare.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Isn't that funny? So I worked as an independent sales consultant for this company, and it basically taught me the skills of cold calling, because I had to take myself out of my comfort zone and learn how to walk into a place of business. I used to go work in the tri-state area, veterinarians, dentists, and infertility places. And I would have to walk in and try to get them to, there's something out there like a care credit. It was the competition to care credit, where if someone wants to go get Invisalign and they want to take out this line of credit, it was the competition. I had to sell them on, hey, try this out. You've done care credit for a long time. I will never forget the very first day, the very first dentist office I went to. I sat in the parking lot and I looked in the mirror and I would say my script over and over again. And I practiced and I'm like, I can do this. the rest is history, and here I am.
So so it wasn't just on the phone. This was live.
This was
like not walking in and saying hello.
This was
wow. That's under fire now. But then who came knocking on your door, so to speak?
So I knew that was a stepping stone. I knew I wasn't going to do that forever, but it was a great way for me to gain experience, and I had tremendous training. So after that, I ended up taking a pharmaceutical contracted position. I thought maybe from the pharma world was the way that I was going to go. In hindsight, I'm not sure why I thought that, because I'm not really passionate about science. But I looked at it again as, well, it has a start date, it has an end date. Well, let me give it a try. But I had to memorize all these materials to go present to pharmacists and all these stats. And it was like being back in school again. So when that was over, again, that was 2 experiences of cold calling businesses that led me to Welcome Wagon, which, if you're familiar or not, it's when new people move into neighborhoods, they get this packet, and it's a packet of local businesses. So that also involved cold calling on the phone and walking into places of business.
So did someone come to your house, knock on your door, and say, "Hey, I'm the Welcome Wagon person"? And
you know what? At that point, I got a little savvy, and I did a lot of searches on the internet, and I went to Indeed, and I went to a lot of the job sites out there, and I started to kind of pick and choose some things. Again, in my mind, not really 100% sure which path it was going to lead me down, but anything I felt like it was giving me more confidence and experience.
How long did you do the Welcome?
I did that for about a year.
Okay.
And it was through my job with Welcome Wagon that led me to where I am today, because in the market that I was in, I would run into a neighborhood publication, and I would bring that neighborhood publication home. At the time, I was using it for leads because businesses were in it. And I kept saying again to my husband, Collegeville does not have anything like this. I grew up in a small town. We both grew up in the Scranton area, close-knit families, businesses. I said, we're raising our family here. Wouldn't this be an amazing opportunity to have something like this in our community? And here I am.
Well, you seem to be, now that you're in this field, you seem to be supercharged about it.
I am.
What are the, maybe like 3 things that, really excite you about this role that you're in today, this job this career that you find yourself, landing in eventually?
So I've said this many times, and I'll hopefully always say it. When you are passionate about what you're doing, it's not a job. And you can talk about it till, the ends of the earth. I get to bring people together. I bring neighbors, I bring businesses, I bring a community together. I actually get the Upper Providence Living in my own mailbox. And when I embarked on the journey, I knew that I wanted that connection, that personal connection to my mailbox. We feature local families on the front cover, nonprofits each month. They get nominated by other local residents. I make rock stars out of those people walking down the street, walking their dog, going into grocery stores. Maybe your kids go to school with them or play sports with them, and they go in places in the community and people stop them and say, oh, wow, I just read your article. You were the cover family on Upper Providence Living or Limerick Living. And it's just the idea that the passion that I have to do that is, again, undeniable, and I'm so thankful for the journey that I'm on. So
it's like Limerick or Upper Providence. How many households do you touch in terms of, do they get it in the mail? The businesses get it. Can you?
Sure. Good questions. So the company that I'm an independent contractor for, which is Best Version Media out of Wisconsin, when a publisher decides to embark on this journey, they do a market research study on an area. So we micro-target an area, homes based on home value, higher discretionary income, educated individuals. Those neighbors then get the magazine for free, and it's all based on the sponsorships from the businesses. We as publishers can increase our market. Our markets usually start between 2,000 and 3,000 homes. But then from there, new developments come. We can, when the time is right, business decision comes in, increase our distribution. Upper Providence, for example, in 2.5 years, I grew it from 3,200 to just shy of 5,000 homes. Limerick, just a year in, goes to a little less than 4,000.
Wow. So is it township based or town based?
Yeah, really good question.
Or resident number based?
Yeah, really good question. So again, back to the publisher. We contract for this company, but they're each publisher's magazine. We get to name them. So when I was launching the first magazine, to me, it just made sense to name it Upper Providence Living because I was going to Upper Providence Township, which includes sections of Collegeville, sections of Phoenixville, sections of Oaks, so a lot of different areas. A lot of our publications either have the word living or friends and neighbors at the end or just neighbors. So it's, again, it doesn't have to be per township.
So when you got promoted, appointed to market leader for this region area.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that. Now, what does that entail in addition to you publishing these two magazines?
Yeah, and again, a really good question. So here's where my teaching comes in. Again, once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. And what that role allows me to do is it, number one, allows me to mentor other people who decide to become publishers like myself within my market, within a few townships around me. But it also helps me to find people that want to do what I do, that I'm looking to fill specific markets within the Philadelphia area and quite honestly, really anywhere in the United States, I could help them.
So it's relationship driven more than geographically
driven. Yes, it is.
Exclusively. Okay.
And then they would learn about, the process of launching a magazine, which markets were available across the United States and into Canada, and then they would go on to training. But I would be that initial person that they would connect with.
How do you advertise for that? Or is it just word of mouth? Are you networking?
Market manager? Yeah. So I do a lot of networking. Again, when I embarked on this career path, I had to put myself out there in my community, join chambers of commerce, get on meetup sites, learn. The more I did that, the more I would encounter someone that knew about this group, that knew about that group, that I would just build my pipeline from there, all while making cold calls. Because without making the cold calls, I tell myself every day I would not be in print.
Gotcha. In fact, you and I met in the networking
That's exactly
group,
right. Yes,
we're both members of Believers in Business.
Absolutely.
In King of Prussia, and that's how we got together originally. So when you look for a person, to take over a magazine, now is that a full-time affair? Can they do it on a part-time basis? What are you really looking for there?
To become a publisher, it really is a full-time job, without question, because the only way you're going to grow your magazine is to, again, out there cold calling businesses, building connections, making referrals, if you will. However, there are opportunities such as an account executive where you wouldn't have to be the publisher, but you could sell into work as a sales rep, kind of another word for it, into other publications.
Like account executive?
Yeah, that's exactly the title.
So let's say if I wanted to be an account executive for you, I could actually go to business owners that I know in the Limerick, Upper Providence area and say, hey, we have this great magazine, and you could go on to getting more clients, more customers.
That's exactly right.
If you put an ad in there, and then I then bring that lead to you.
That's exactly right.
And then I would get paid a commission for bringing that lead.
Correct.
To you. Is that how that would work?
Yeah, where you wouldn't have the publisher component of it, which involves the monthly deadline every month, because it's a monthly publication. So with that times two, I mean, a lot of publishers even have more than two publications. You wouldn't have to worry about getting all the ad specs and getting everything off to the graphic designer and working with the cover families and your writer and your photographer. So you would just be doing the selling. Individual publishers also can have a content coordinator and a photographer. So I currently have both, but it's always good to keep your eyes and ears open. So a photographer, obviously, their job would be to take the cover photos for the publication.
Okay.
And a content coordinator, his or her job involves writing and editing. They interview the cover story, they spotlight the businesses in the magazine, and they help me to edit it on a monthly basis.
What kind of one thing that we talked about last week when we chatted was Best Media does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of they put the actual magazine together. and they're the ones that kind of do the final edit of what it's going to look and say.
Yes. So they're in Wisconsin, and all of our magazines come out of Wisconsin. So our graphic designers all work for Best Version Media, whether they're remote or they're actually at the office. We get paired up with them, but that's all through our company. And there's, if I didn't mention this already, forgive me if I did, there's over 800 to 900 publishers across the United States and into Canada that do what I do.
And all the states and townships doing just what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah. Even right here in the tri-state area, since I've launched, before me, there was maybe 3 or 4 magazines. There's probably 15 to 20 now.
Wow.
And growing.
Well, what kind of investment does a person need to make without getting into too many numbers? But if let's say if I'm a career coach and I run into people all the time that might be in between jobs, so the part-time income is of interest to some people, but then some people are at a point in their life where, you know what, I may have gotten laid off.
Yep.
I might be 59 years old. You know, I may not want to go back into corporate America. Maybe they have another income source, a spouse or significant other that works. Hey, you know, I'd like to go jump into this, but people get a little leery.
Of
course. Is this like a franchise? And do I have to spend a lot, invest a lot of money? And can you just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we are not a franchise.
Okay.
And to be honest, when I first wanted to go down this path of a community magazine, the first model that I looked at or company that I looked at was a franchise model. And I just personally didn't want to do that. There were pros and cons, and a lot of cons steered me away. And it's the best decision I made. Best Version Media, we're independent contractors. So there is no money up front except to take yourself to training, which most trainings are in Wisconsin a couple times a year. Actually, it was just this past week. We have them in Philadelphia and a few other areas within the United States. You go out to training for a day and a half and you learn how to launch a community magazine. So you pay your airfare, your hotel, meals are provided. From then on out, you have all the tools that you need. And the only thing you do is there's no compensation until you get your magazine to print.
The print.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Once you get your magazine to print, that's where your compensation starts to come in.
And then I would take the more advertisers, the thicker your magazine is.
That's exactly right.
You get income, and so you could stay at one township or location and make it really thick. Or you start to multiply to other townships. Is that how that?
That's exactly right. So our magazines go between 16 and I would say 48 pages.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and pretty much, sponsorships changing, etc. But yes, generally what a publisher does is they'll launch a second magazine, and obviously the more magazines you have, besides the more work that it is, the greater the compensation you can have. But you can have one magazine and do really well too. So don't take that you have to have multiple. You don't have to have multiple magazines.
So just one alone could do very well.
You could do very well. And really, the sky's the limit.
So I coach people, around the tri-state area. So New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, but and then the listeners of this station are streaming across the U.S. So there could be people listening today that might have interest. Go ahead. I was going to just add to that point, if you don't mind. The other thing probably worth mentioning is because we have magazines all over the place, publishers can cross-sell into each other's other magazines too. So there's opportunities to make to like revenue share between each other a little bit. Okay, and that's wonderful. So it's not a blood and guts.
No, it's
type
great.
Affair where you draw a line. So that's wonderful. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you're here talking about it because not just about your career journey and about how you kind of kept on, moving. But now, when I see you, you're just like a light bulb in terms of, loving what you do.
Thank you.
But, if somebody wanted to contact you, Julie, what's the best way to reach you?
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn. So my contact info is all on there. If you search for my magazines on Facebook, Best Version Media, Upper Providence Living, Best Version Media, Limerick Living, you can certainly find me there. I know
if you're on LinkedIn, how do you spell your name?
So it's Julie and it's Kovaleski, Kovaleski.
Beautiful. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
this morning and kicking off our Career Spotlight series. You raised a pretty big bar, so the next
Thank
person
you for having me.
Thanks again for coming in. Well, we're just about out of time, and it's been another amazing. It goes like lightning, it seems. For those new to the program, I did want to remind you that I did publish my first book at the end of 2019 called Optimize Your Career, Do's and Don'ts of Resumes, the Sam Nova Way. It's available on Amazon and paperback and Kindle. I'm very honored to say from hundreds of people who have bought my book to date, I have not had one person tell me that it was not helpful. In fact, just the opposite. The reviews on Amazon have been very, very good, and I've been speaking at many venues, and the feedback continues to come in terms of it being a practical guide to helping people with their resume. And if you're working, you might want to sharpen it up while you're working. You might have a son or daughter in need or a friend in need. In fact, I even had some churches buy some copies, and they're giving out to people who are unemployed as a thank you by their church. So let's close with, join me again on our next Optimize Your Career program on Saturday, February 2nd, 2020. We'll be talking about the hidden job market, what it is, and why it's not as easy as it seems to knock on that door as part of your job search strategy. This is Ed Samuel, career coach with Sam Nova. Our website is www.samnovainc.com, samnovainc.com. If you'd like to reach me with a question or comment, it's esamuel@samnovainc.com, or call our main number at 610-274-8214. Make it a blessed weekend. Wishing you a great new year in 2020. God bless.